Welcome to the MadTrio podcast. This week we have the California Pariah, Jonathan Charney, Rob, the old guy.
You're listening to the Rob Charney Show.
Yeah, it's me. I'm here.
And who the hell is that? It's Ryan Preston.
Hello. That's a tribute to my
James.
buddy.
Yeah.
It's weird now that I'm using my new headphones. Everything's just a tad bit quieter, except the weeping of some actors who I really enjoyed, all their fans. The brother of the Beaver, Tony Dow, passed away from cancer, unfortunately. This breaks my heart because they were still showing reruns of that when I was a kid. So morning TV had Leave It to Beaver, My Three Sons, stuff like that. So I was really sad about that.
I mean, should have been a main character.
I actually think
all the stuff I got to watch as a kid.
I think Eddie Haskell actually probably made me the saddest when he passed away, because he was the character that I hated the most, and I had the most emotional connection to hating the character. And so when he passed on a number of years ago, I was really sad about that.
Yeah.
And David Warner, actor known for Titanic, Star Trek, and for me, Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, passed away at 80 years old.
Wait, who?
David Warner. You would, if you saw him, you would definitely know who he is.
Now I gotta look it up. God damn it!
It's Warner. David Warner. And he's done a ton of stuff. Trust me, you can't forget his face.
Oh shit! This fella. I mean, well, damn, he's been old forever.
Hey.
Well, no, he's one of those guys that 30 years ago he looked close to the grave. I mean, he's
right.
I don't know if you guys know who Arn Anderson. He was known as AAA. He's a wrestler, and in his heyday, everybody said he looked 40. He said the greatest thing about my age is now I look how I always have. He said I fit my age. Well, all of his fellow compatriots look like they're about ready to die. Oh, talk about ready to die. Ric Flair is officially going to do his last match ever, after nearly dying, having a pacemaker installed, and all sorts of other issues. So much so, friends have asked him not to do it, and he's promised to jump off the top rope at 73 years old, a man who has been certifiably rode hard and put away wet.
That man is going to die in the ring.
I can't... I can't really blame him. I mean, he's considered probably the greatest modern-day wrestler. Probably one of the greatest champions. That he was one of the longest running NWA roving champions of ever. Like, if you actually read some of the stories, it's funny. People would get the belt and routinely ask to have it taken away because the travel schedule is killing them.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, yeah, dude, that's a brutal life. I haven't really been a fan of professional wrestling since I was young, mid-teens kind of thing. I was very much when I was a kid, it was Jake the Snake. And when I was a teenager, it was, like The Rock had just came out, and, Mick Foley and, all of those guys. Mick Foley was, I think it was Mankind when I caught back up with it and stuff. But as much as I'm not a fan of it now, and it's just become more about the soap opera than anything else, damn do I respect that as a profession. Well, I mean, what these dudes put themselves through is ridiculous.
And it's funny too, because there's so many people who say it's fake. Like, oh, it's fake. It's not real until you.
Well, it is. The outcome is fake. The outcome is predetermined. But I know where you're going with this.
Well, I just always thought it was funny because there's wrestlers, like, people say, oh, it's fake, and what's his name? Randy Orton has a great response to that. If you guys want to find it, look it up. Sorry, my headphones are doing something weird. But basically, these guys that, like, Big E Langston broke his neck because a move failed. You take a look at Buff Bagwell. Something similar happened to him. These guys are beat up. Hulk Hogan was 6'8". He's 6'4" now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that John Wick is real just because Keanu Reeves does his own stunts.
Yeah, let me put it
Hey,
this.
that's as close as real as we're going to get.
Let me put it.
You know
this,
what? As far as the movie, I'm surprised it got there.
I'd put $100 on any top rank wrestler beating the shit out of like John Wick in real life, if he was a real character. You know, just because how tough these guys are.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, the guy would get shot before he got there.
It probably. Well, yeah, true. So, do you guys remember Aragon, the movie that came out years ago? That basically,
Oh yeah.
it was one of those books that everybody has said you got to read until everybody read it and says it rip off a bunch of things. Well, Disney is making a live-action Aragon TV show in the early stages of development at Disney Plus. The show will be adopted from Christopher Paolini's popular young adult. I'm actually thinking this might be the perfect way to do this because the movies just sucked.
Well, you know, I'm skeptical these days of the Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon originals, those sorts of things where I get a real made for TV vibe
Yes.
out of a lot of these things. Now, some of them it's like hey, Netflix has got a lot of money to throw around and they're not paying these distributors millions and upon millions of tens of millions of dollars to put the movie out. They're just doing it on a digital platform, so it costs them nothing ostensibly. But so they're able to kind of pass along that, hey, we're going to give Kevin Hart and The Rock, you know, a 5-picture deal for millions and millions of dollars. So we get the big names, but I have not seen the wheat separated from the shaft very much on a lot of these. Like the writing seems subpar. The some of the special effects and stuff are kind of up there, but some of them are kind of janky. It's kind of hit and miss, but the stories aren't there. It's the kind of stuff I feel like would not have made it through the rigmarole that standard Hollywood will put a script through. Now, granted, there's a lot of shitty movies that Hollywood makes, and there's a lot of good movies that get passed over, but there's a dedication when that big of a studio gets a hold of something and they're dedicating X amount of millions of dollars towards a project. It's because they believe it's going to make money.
Okay, I got a question for you and the old guy. Imagine, say, take it back to the 80s, early 90s, when the distribution platforms were around. Would these movies, you think, be in the theaters? Because don't forget, RoboCop 3 was in the theaters for about a weekend. And that has... So, the question is movies today so polished? And by that, I mean, if you take a look at the Marvel movies, where they're ridiculously thought of, ridiculously formulaic, and you can practically predict them. You know, that's I kind of.
Well, but you were able to predict the comic books also, but that's not the point. Is the spectacle?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I kind of like. I actually think Aragon makes a perfect TV show because the movie was just awful. Even though Jeremy Irons is in it, best part of the movie, by the way, was Jeremy Irons. I don't know. I'm excited. I actually like the fact that some of these movies are being released on a streaming platform because it saves me from having to spend money in the theater. Even though if I was the theaters, I might be kind of pissed because I wonder if they're losing money by some of these things not being there after the first release.
That's what I'm thinking is they're not dedicating the effort to it. I think especially some of the Netflix stuff that I've seen lately seems very kind of cookie cutter. It's just an excuse to get these two actors on screen together again. I'm saying this because I just recently watched one of the Kevin Hart Rock movies. It was just like okay, well, this is incredibly generic and an excuse for Kevin Hart to be Kevin Hart and The Rock to be The Rock. But it's I don't know. It loses something to me. Like I said, it feels like kind of a made for TV sort of a movie.
Well, they are.
I mean, right.
All right. So you kind of get, I know exactly what you mean. The feel's different and it's never going to feel like, like you get, they're not quite as polished and the budgets aren't as big and you can tell, but some of them have been pretty good as far as I'm concerned. But
Some of them, you know, little sleepers here and there.
yeah,
To be honest,
Oh, okay, actually, I've got to bring something up. Please finish your point because I'm going to launch into a thing.
I
Uh-oh.
kind of like the fact, to be honest, they're kind of unpolished. I kind of prefer a little bit of funk on things today. Because, like, if you take a look at the Marvel movies or anything's really being released to theaters, it's ridiculously polished.
Well, I agree to a certain extent, but when you're talking about like an action spy movie, I need some goddamn polish.
yeah.
Well, I think there's a difference, and part of it maybe is because movies today are so clean. Like, if you take a look at early '80s movies, the effects weren't polished really because that technology was around. It's just there's more funk and grit, and everything is so damn clean and so PC. Like, I remember watching movies when I was a kid, and you're like, "Oh, that was stiff," and you know it was done to be maybe a little controversial, but it highlighted the points that it needed to, and it covered everything. I think every today is just so.
I think the streaming platforms, I can definitely agree. Some people you can tell are playing, you know, a bit of the woke Olympics and things like that, which I hate when I can smell an agenda in a movie. I just want you to tell me a story. If the story makes a point, whatever that point might be, and I'm not saying, you know, any kind of political side or, you know, any side of any controversial issue or things like that, but any agenda. You know, I'm a gun advocate, Second Amendment advocate, and if I can smell a Second Amendment agenda in a movie, I'm just like, you preachy sons of bitches. I just want to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Tell me a story.
Well,
No, I understand that.
the
And
one
I agree with that.
the one I want to see and I'm waiting to see is Top Gun. Because it was.
Oh man, I hear that's just like a Go America. I'm all aboard with that shit. Let's go.
When the Top Gun first came out, I remember reading articles years later talked about how Air Force actually got higher recruitments, like so
Navy.
much like Top Gun would fine people if they said they had the need for speed because they
It's a
found
Navy
it so fucking
aviator. Same.
So, I'm
But
looking.
no, dude, that movie is not. It's not an agenda. That's propaganda. That's different, and I'm all in.
Well, no, it's two things. Still, there's still an agenda because they couldn't make that movie without the United States military saying
The
yes.
agenda is, hey, look how dope this is.
You know what the agenda was? We just want your fucking money. That's what it is. That's the straight up
Well,
agenda.
I mean, it's this. I mean, look, I actually just don't like the military paying money to, you know, have military stuff done right before sports games and certain events like that. That's a recruiting tool, you know. And I mean, look, you gotta get these young men from somewhere, and I'm a big supporter of the military, but that's kind of a ham-fisted sort of a way to go about it. These sorts of things are much more my speed. You know, give me Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
Oh. Yeah, that's right. I really believe Charlie Sheen could do a halo jump and
I
survive the
don't
way he
believe
partied.
it. I don't believe one
Yeah.
second of it, but it's still it. That's what you want is the fantasy going into
I
it.
could-
Yes, you don't have to
Find out the
believe any of
reality
it.
the
See,
hard
I
way.
could
Exactly.
believe Louis Gossett Jr. flying an F-16 and Iron Eagles more than I could believe Charlie Sheen did half the shit in his movies that didn't involve smoking, drinking, or having coitus.
Hey, I
Well, all
totally
right.
bought him in Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had a Screed?
Okay. This is a little Real Flicks Reviews territory, and I would have absolutely made you guys watch this. I was not forced to, but a buddy of mine, I'm over at his house a weekend a couple weeks ago, and he says, you got to watch this movie. This movie's insane. Just sit here and watch like the first 7 minutes of this movie. I'm like, all right, what is it?
Yeah.
And it's called RRR. It's a Bollywood movie on Netflix.
Okay.
Now, I
okay.
have seen a handful of Bollywood movies over the years. Couldn't tell you any particular titles. I am obviously not versed in the popular actors but I'm aware of the machine that is Bollywood. Okay. And I'm also aware of the style that goes far beyond like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon stylized sort of world that they put together. It's far beyond that. I mean, if anybody who saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon thought that the high flying wire stuff dancing across the light branches of trees was ridiculous, watch a Bollywood movie, and that looks like makes Crouching Tiger look like a demonstration in physics.
But when I watch a Bollywood movie, that's kind of what I'm expecting.
So, right, me too. What I'm not expecting is any kind of story, any kind of through line. It's all completely disjointed and insane. It feels like a fucking fever dream.
So at the few I've watched, part of it was my thought is like, how much is just cultural that I do not understand? Or is there purposely not having a story? It's like watching the Nutcracker. There may be a story. I just don't get the method they're telling it.
No, I agree, because when I first saw Crouching Tiger, I keep using that as my excuse, but that was the first time I saw like the sort of very Eastern style of filmmaking, the high flying wires, the kind of shit that I hate John Woo for. But I really respect when it comes from a like a kung fu movie or something like that.
Or for cutting the cost of electric vehicles, because when you have an electric vehicle, then you're also going to be
3 hours long.
to save on gas, but you got to be able to afford it in the first place. Right. Now we're actually starting
What
to see
the heck
some,
is that?
Good question. I have no idea. Sorry, we had some audio that seemed to be coming through somewhere.
That was
weird.
Okay.
But not as weird as this movie. So
the movie is weird.
It's almost 3.5 hours long. Okay.
Oh, wow.
After the first 7 minutes, we ended up watching about the next 2 hours. And then we ended up having to start a game with everybody. But I ended up going home and watching the rest of this damn thing because, boy, was I invested.
So I got a question for you. Were you sober?
As a bird. For the first 2 hours. Later, whatever.
Okay, go on. Didn't matter.
It does a little.
It doesn't. Trust me. I could not help but to like the shit out of this movie. It's an incredibly complicated and convoluted story that I won't get into, but easy enough to follow. The music was like oddly specific to the scene that was going on. Like, oh, these two people meet. I wonder if this will end in betrayal. And these are like the lyrics, and you're like, wow, way to spell it out in song. There was at least 3 full-blown music videos in the middle of this movie. The crazy part is the level of stunt work and special effects was top notch. The couple of main actors they got for this thing, for one, are super jacked. And I mean, do really, really incredible stuff, but it's so hard to explain this movie. But I would have made you watch it and defy you to not at least respect it at some level.
All right. Well, that's like a challenge, huh, John? We'll have to.
Oh, no. We'll both have to. Very much is a challenge.
So you know what also sounds like a movie? This story. It's from tweaktown.com. And this is hilarious. I wanted to report it because I was laughing for like 20 minutes after I read this. And I'm going to read the headline and just read some of the stories. So this is in Science, Space, Health, and Robotics section of this website. NASA says that astronauts who masturbate in space can impregnate women very easily. Strict guidelines over alone time in space, mandatory. And
what?
And here, this is
okay.
This is like a question,
man.
This is like a question everybody has, but nobody's ever asked.
All right.
NASA has warned that male astronauts masturbating in space is a major hazard. Female astronauts can get impregnated like sperm is a face hugger from aliens.
What?
This is why I was laughing, because whoever wrote it, the story became a thing from a discussion during Conan O'Brien and his Needs a Friend podcast, who was interviewing a NASA engineer when the topic came to the strict guidelines and alone time in zero gravity. During the interview, Brian asked the NASA engineer if porn was set up or, I guess, streamed on the International Space Station. The engineer, who only identified as Smythe, said, no, none of that. O'Brien said, does porn work in zero gravity? It goes everywhere. And Smythe explained 3 female astronauts could be impregnated by the same man on the same time.
Does this guy not know how it works?
His comment was basically, by the description I read of it, imagine what water does in space, and just
but
it's theoretically possible. It's not probable, but it is plausible as a hypothesis.
So there's either going to be a porn of this, or this is going to end up in some sort of like B-rated Hollywood movie in a couple of years. Because
probably both. Now that that's out there, yeah.
I will refer you to, I believe, if I recall correctly, rule number 34 of the internet.
Yeah, true.
If it exists, there's a porn of it.
Right.
I just
you think zero gravity porn doesn't exist?
It does.
I have truly never looked into it, to be honest. But when I read this was like the question every kid tries to ask an astronaut when the mother like smacks him on the head and said, "Ask a better fucking question." But I was reading for a while after that, just because it was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've read.
Wow.
In a while.
Okay, that's crazy.
And
so,
you go ahead. Then I can talk.
You got
about
more to
movie.
it?
Okay, well, there's another Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out. There's been a handful of movies that have come out over the years, and they've all sucked. The first one I remember was the guy who played the second Jimmy in the Adventures of Lois and Clark, and it's with Chris Pine. Take a look, watch the trailer, see what you think. It looks interesting, and this is the first A-rated actor that's been in one.
Yeah, I like Chris Pine.
Yeah, I play D&D, and
you look like it.
Shut up. Yeah, I've got friends who are probably a little more excited about it than I am, or a little more hopeful, I should say. It does look like they're trying to do an adaptation of the play style, which is really the only thing that the different groups of like D&D players are going to get on, is the way the rules work, and things like that, what you roll in certain circumstances, versus the actual story. The stories are so unbelievably specific to you and your group of friends, that you have to, if you're going to make a D&D movie, you've got to just fall back on like the jokes about the mechanics and stuff like that, because everybody's story is so personal.
It looks like the Sci-Fi Channel made it from the trailer. I'm gonna look. Well, that's. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Added to the list of let's just try 5 minutes of it, and if you go further, then good on it.
I'm gonna see it, but it looks awful.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I was a fan of Dragonheart when I was a kid, so there you go.
Which one?
This isn't
the first one. What am I, an asshole?
You really want me to answer that?
I'm not the asshole that watched the second one. Let's just say that.
Oh, okay. I've seen all three.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh. Moving away from movies for a moment. So let's say you survive a helicopter crash. What would you expect to happen after that?
How quickly after the crash? Like I wake up and I'm dangling from a seatbelt? Or
yeah, I need to have crickets after that one, right? I kind of want sad, but
I'm just wondering what stage I am.
Yeah.
Have I been rescued already?
No, you survived it. All right. So you survived the crash.
So his feet are on the ground.
Yeah, and you are on the ground now. Imagine this though. You're in Siberia.
Oh hell no!
All right, and then
the story
you still survived the crash. But here's the part that gets a little odd. The rescuers find the charred remains of the helicopter and just pieces of the 3 people that survived it because they were eaten by bears.
Yeah. I was gonna say, something tells me I'm not gonna want to have survived this helicopter crash.
I was
I'm sure glad I survived this crash. Oh God, I wish I had died in this crash. It's like, oh no.
One of them was probably a geek and saw one of those bears. It's like, oh, Luke Skywalker, survived in a tauntaun. Let's cut it open. Then the bear came closer and ate him.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, unfortunately, this actually happened. It actually happened.
No,
yeah.
I'm good.
It's
I'm
like,
good.
oh,
Thanks.
There's a lot of shitty things that involve being eaten by bears. Remember that
bears
documentary?
Eat you by like your feet and ass first. You know what I mean? Like they don't even go for the throat like a big cat would. Like you're getting your guts eaten while you're sitting there staring at it.
They'll just eat whatever they have in their mouth. So it's not good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's all bad.
Boy, I tell you, I'm sorry for those people. But...
I mean, we talking civilian or military?
Civilian. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's just all bad.
Yeah.
I know, but the stories I've heard from Ukraine, I'd say the same thing about the military, considering that half of them or more than half are been voluntold.
I mean, well, yeah.
Oh, well, you mean conscripted?
Conscripted, yeah.
Voluntold.
Yes.
Yeah. I heard I talked about being volunteered to be military service. I heard an interview with his name's Road Dogg. I don't remember what his real name is. He's a wrestler. He was in the first Gulf War, and he talked about, he's out there with his buddies, and he was the squad leader, and this 1,000 people just Afghanistan's raised their hand and said, take me to your leader. And so I was
going to say, didn't 9 people get into actual combat during the first Gulf War?
I don't know. I just remember
it was more than that. I'm just,
The story's pretty funny. He got to the base and he said they had to line everybody up and search them, make sure they're not taking weapons. And he said it was kind of weird. Just go to the base and you say, yeah, I've got these 4 guys or 6 guys. Like, yeah, I've got at least 1,000 people. And so the guy didn't blink his eye. Said, just process them. So the guy said, yeah, this has been happening all day long.
Yeah. There was a lot of people giving up in that one, from what I understand. And a lot of bored Marines just are we going to get to do anything?
Well, that's never a good thing when Marines get bored.
I mean, overkill's underrated. You know what I'm saying? So let's send 500,000 fucking people for something that takes 42 guys.
Having not been there, I'm not going to comment. So.
No, me neither. And I'm just talking shit anyway. So
I know people who are Marines, because there's no such thing as a former Marine. I'd say they're all nuts. And I did you know Sylvester Stallone didn't have any rights from Rocky?
Oh, really?
Only because
he wasn't even the writer and director. He didn't have any of the actual rights.
Yeah, this one right here is from it's from 94.3 Light FM, but apparently let's see, Robert Chaff. Hold on, I had it. After 50 years associated with the Rocky franchise, Stallone publicly called one of the series 2 original producers parasitical and accused him of keeping him from passing on some rights to the character to his children in his series of Instagram posts. Basically, he's saying, come on, let me have some of the rights so I can pass down to the kids, because you guys will always make money on this. And originally, I guess the story is he sold his dog, finally sold the script, bought his dog back, and he wrote it in a couple of days. His daughters, I think, have a podcast with him, and he talks about what he went through to actually sell the script. And I'm surprised he doesn't own the rights, or at least some of it.
That's shocking.
Yeah, probably at the time you have to do what you have to do, and that was probably the way to get it made. So
yeah, for sure,
right? Understood.
Oh, well, Stallone created
the Rocky. You want to be a star, don't you?
Well, Stallone created the Rocky Balboa character and played him in every movie to date. He was not a producer in the original film in '76, and in fact was never credited on any of the films until the first and Creed in 2015. The upcoming Creed 3 is the first movie of the franchise. He will not be in it.
Wow. Crazy. That's weird that's been passed on to another generation with a different actor and shit.
I think that's really, I don't know, I thought that was cool. I really liked the first one. I haven't seen any of the other ones. I loved how they handled it. Like the one before that when his wife died and all. I don't know, I thought it was kind of neat how he became the Mick character. I was kind of hoping that was what he would become, but I also don't blame.
It's a really terrific movie. I mean, the guy wrote what he knew, and he wrote it really, really well. He's a big dumb guy from Philadelphia. He didn't write a Rhodes Scholar from Massachusetts. He wrote a big dumb guy from Philadelphia. And
so you're saying it's an autobiography?
Nailed it. No, I'm saying it absolutely played to his strengths, like Schwarzenegger being cast initially as a robot, the guy already kind of acted like a robot because he barely knew English at all.
Well, let's be honest.
His weird line readings actually did him a favor.
What was that? You mean that was like one of the first roles he actually got to speak, because he didn't get to speak in Hercules in New York.
That's what I'm saying. You know, it was just like a great starting role. Like, here, you don't have to be a good actor. However, if you read these lines all stupid and monotone, it's actually working.
So you talk about that. I read something a while ago that made me laugh. Apparently, Schwarzenegger's accent makes him sound like a country bumpkin to people who speak German or Austrian. I don't remember which one. So apparently, when it was released over to where he's from, somebody else dubbed it because nobody could believe a hick was a robot killer.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other stories? I found another one I find interesting.
I don't have a story, but I did have a question for you guys.
Uh-oh. Sure. Shoot.
And
cover.
And especially for Rob, because Rob, you've taught concealed carry classes for many years now, right?
Yeah, almost 40.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you fall on carry position?
You're talking about physical?
Physical, like appendix carry, or like a 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock carry. What's your general school of thought on this?
So everybody's got a comfort level that's different, and one of the things you find out when you're carrying is that comfort becomes critical. Least you go ahead and display to people the fact that you're carrying by fidgeting with it, by moving it around, by lifting your shirt, whatever it may be. So,
which, if I'm not mistaken, is illegal.
But certainly not something you want to do. It's not necessarily illegal, but it's certainly nothing good, because, let's say if you're in a public place and you're doing that and some mother looks over and they're seeing you lift your shirt up and sees the gun, all of a sudden they go screaming crazy, he's got a gun, and things go downhill from there. So so I've not been a fan of two major ways. Appendix carry is just not my thing, but I know some guys seem to like that. And ankle holsters just
that's ridiculous. Let me reach 4 feet for my gun. That's always impractical.
What about the old detective special? I remember when I was younger, you going on a scree about bozos that carry in the old shoulder, the sling.
The shoulder holster is the dumbest thing of all time.
Surprisingly enough, it's actually very comfortable. And the
biggest comfortable, but it's impractical from a draw standpoint because it's flexible in your armpit. So you have to have that leather tight in order to draw without getting resistance.
Well, there's a lot of different shoulder holster styles and designs. The one I had actually worked very well. And so I found it, pretty quick to get to. Here's the problem, though, like most guys, is that if you're going to go, either the weather's hot or you go inside a building somewhere where the air conditioning isn't strong enough, the first thing you're going to want to do is take your jacket off, right? So it's not very practical. Let's put it that way, unless you're law enforcement.
My favorite ridiculous one to carry, I've watched a number of these shows that talk about on YouTube, like these carries, and they have one for women that actually fits on the strap between the two cups. And they actually have this mechanism that hits there, and you can hold your gun there. And that was the one that was funny, because this woman, they give you these fake scenarios. So this woman's reaching under all her shirts trying to pull it off, and
so it's a lot like appendix carry for women. For men, where you lift your shirt way up and you pull it out. Well, the same thing for women. They lift their shirt out and they pull the gun out. Now, having taught a lot of women and showing this design, there's not been a single woman that's ever said, "Oh, I can't wait to get that."
Yeah,
it's always been no way in hell.
Because not only are they going to get a charge of potentially shooting somebody, they're going to get an indecent exposure charge while they're at it.
I mean, that's a problem for future you,
Time to duck.
First, you got to make sure there's a future you.
A radiation shower will pour throughout your town. Hands over your head, deep low to the ground. Time to duck and cover, the bombs are coming down.
Did you just play the duck and cover theme?
Yes, I've been doing it randomly throughout the show.
Holy shit.
So why the question, out of curiosity?
Yeah, you know what? A buddy of mine and I we're kind of debating the functionality of them and things, and I think we sort of just fell on with comfort comes consistency, as my golf mantra.
Right.
And it is kind of whatever makes you comfortable, and a lot of that kind of depends on the holsters. I haven't gone through a shit ton of options.
Right.
And I don't carry concealed, but just having friends who do, and ranges and stuff like that, shooting with friends, I've tried a handful of them over the years, but not as many. When I've known people who go out and they're like, I'm gonna go get a new holster. We'll try like 90 different holsters.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, any of us that have carried for any period of time, you end up with about 90 different holsters and hunt for, the most comfortable
the perfect one, right?
Right. And it's probably it's like no pair of shoes is the most comfortable in the world ever. But, it's the same kind of thing. So but I'm pretty much fond that, carrying on strong side, whatever. And generally the cant depends on the gun that you're carrying.
Sure. So. Yeah. I've always been an appendix carry fan. Personally, I like the motion. The only thing that I found that I can think of really that would depend situationally, I suppose, is okay, shots start ringing out. I'm not law enforcement or military. My reaction to gunfire is probably going to be like, oh shit, duck. You know what I mean? And now I'm in this like hunch position. I've got to kind of straighten my whole ass body out again to draw a pistol. So I kind of like the 4 o'clock kind of just, right behind the hip. But I know guys who carry, or one guy rather, who carries straight small of his back, like a 6 o'clock. And I'm like, dude, that's a lot of movement, to get back there. Your hand's got to make a big ass trip all the way around.
Right.
And then bring it back around to the front. I like that from an appendix standpoint, and I probably should be thinner. But I've known fat guys who carry appendix very efficiently, draw straight up, and I'm already in a low ready. As soon as the pistol leaves a holster, I'm in a low ready, and all I got to do is kind of punch out.
So the most unrealistic one, but looks like the most comfortable, is Vin Diesel's carry in Babylon AD, where it's just basically on his chest.
Oh yeah, that's the good old tactical vest, style.
Like that looks like the best, but I just, the amount of printing that does.
Try carrying that for concealed firearm. It's not going to happen.
Right. And we go to the grocery store with a.
No, what you
tactically on your chest.
What you got to do is
if anything, go like Blackbeard and put like 6 of them.
No, what you got to do is you're going to carry a button-up shirt. You're right. Just going to wear this button-up shirt, and when shit goes down, you're going to do the superhero rip.
Just pop the shirt.
That's right. Yeah.
And
all
hopefully
the buttons are going to go flying.
And hopefully the gun doesn't go flying with it.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question.
It's one of those I'm curious on everybody's preference.
Sure. Yeah. I'm pretty easy on most of my students. It's like I said, it's pretty much, and you mentioned behind the back, and for a while there's been a few television shows where they showed the people carrying them there. And one of the worst things, I tried that, and it's like, how do you sit in a chair with a back of any kind and have that thing pressing into the small of your back? And if you have any kind of back issues at all, it just makes it worse. So it's not. Anyway, so much for that.
So I did want to talk about, I've known a number of diabetics, and I have God rest his soul, a good friend, former co-host of Real Fix Reviews, pass away because of complications of diabetes. And why insulin, after being around for roughly over 100 years, why is it still expensive? A lot of people end up spending an insane amount of money a month, especially for type 1, on insulin. This gentleman by the name of Alec had type 1 diabetes. The 26-year-old had been recently removed from his parents' health insurance and was about $300 short of the $1,300 he needed to pay for his insulin and medication. And that's super not uncommon. Now, there's different types of insulin that people use. There's like quick acting. So a lot of people will say, if you don't have the money, go to Walmart and you'll get like quick acting. It's not as good as some of the other stuff you can get. And it's not uncommon for diabetics, because they can't afford it, to skip their shots, which, by the way, is lethal. You can build up what's called ketoacidosis, which is basically your body starting to shut down. And this report from NBCnews.com asked, why the fuck is it so expensive in the United States and it's cheaper in other countries? One of the things is called evergreening, according to this article, where basically the drug companies make small improvements over time. And so it basically stays that expensive level. Some drug companies do offer discounts and et cetera, et cetera. So the government, first time I remember hearing about this, I think was under Trump. I think Obama even talked about it. But why is insulin so expensive, and why haven't politicians and people done more to stop it from being expensive? Because this is life-saving.
Dude, that's one of those things I feel like should be like the cost of cold medicine. You know, like what's a bottle of Dimetap run? I mean, and you know, like that's and especially for type 1. I mean, look, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a Hippocratic oath, but even just from a personal standpoint, you know, people get discriminated against with type 2 diabetes because it's, you know, a lot of times brought on by, you know, diet, lifestyle, things like that. And that's sad because, I mean, like, hey man, I like tacos too. Okay. Like, and it's, no shit.
It can be, honestly, I know somebody who got diabetes basically from a cold. It got a really bad cold, ended up turning into diabetes. Talking to this person's mom, and said pretty much what happened is the doctor told her at the time, I don't know if it's apocryphal now, that basically said, yeah, if you get sick enough and your body has that whatever mechanism, it said you can get it from an extremely bad cold. And type 2 diabetes, I think, can just happen. I think you can be.
I mean, sometimes, yeah. I mean, there's probably a lot of different little mechanisms for it, you know, throughout your life. People at higher risk than others. Yeah, sure.
Part of it also
because I got older.
I'm pre-diabetic. And one of the things that I was never taught, and this sounds ridiculous, was how to eat. Like my comfort food is give me all the stodgy, give me pasta, give me heavy stuff. That's always been my comfort food. And COVID basically caused my pre-diabetes to go into overdrive, because I was fucking eating pastas and breads and, you know, like everything.
COVID, wait a minute, let me get this right. COVID made you eat pastas and bread.
Because life was so
that's a new
shitty.
Side effect of COVID.
No,
I didn't know about.
I know it absolutely is. You should have seen the COVID with the gun to my head, telling me to eat all that shit too. Yeah. It's like a mob, dude. It's got to be done.
Boy, no wonder we got to get this stopped quickly.
Thugs, I'm telling you.
We're going to run out of pasta soon if that keeps up.
Yeah, it was, you know, so I'm being a little silly, but it was the fact that, you know, it was my comfort food because I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. Being outside, you'd have some jackass saying, you need to wear a mask when it's a fucking windy day. So all this stuff. And so you needed comfort food. And I actually know a lot of people who gained weight, had other issues. And so for me, one thing I was never taught in school was how to eat. Like how to actually, what your body needs. And everybody's body's different. Some people can handle more carbs than others.
Dude,
and that was
our whole generation's understanding of diet from when we were kids is bullshit.
Yeah.
We were failed.
Well, that's that food pyramid that they came out with, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like, it's I mean, you look at it now and you're like, holy shit, are you kidding? Like, I mean, even from just a cursory understanding of a halfway decent diet, you look at that now and you're just like, this is psychopathic.
So what ended
up it's changed generations after generations. It changes, and the whole idea behind it changes. And as science gets better, we learn a little bit more of some of it.
And I
that's
get
partly it.
I get it's a pretty dynamic thing, but I mean, you know, what we were taught and what is generally considered to be universal knowledge, because there's a lot of fringe stuff when it comes to diets, but just the base, like you break it down to 6 things or whatever that people all agree on, like none of that was mentioned.
And it's so what I did, the reason I mentioned this was partially diabetes, partially is because of diet, and it's the things I'm following right now for personally. And for me, it came down to, like, I actually bought an app. I actually had to learn how to eat. So after doing a crash course of diabetes and eating, and by the way, there's a fuckload of FUD. If you're out there and you're trying to figure out what you can and can't eat, talk to your doctor and find actually something that's not like shit, because there's so many sources of bad juju when it comes to what you can and can't eat. Basically comes down to carbs and sugars. But I found an app, and basically I started measuring my food. And then from there, I actually learned how to eat. I think somehow we need to do something as society. It's like, hey, you can choose to eat what you want, but this is what's actually recommended. Because
right.
They don't
and
do
hey,
that?
and even just like a hey, look, if you're gonna eat like shit, at least do this a couple of times a week, or like like please, if you're just gonna go a ham on the Haagen-Dazs and McDonald's, just throw at least these couple of like base things in there.
I don't. It was
every now and then eat a green vegetable.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. There's the bane of my existence, man. God. My diet sucks so bad.
Oh man, that's the one thing I actually fell in love with my diet. I eat more vegetables now than I ever have. Like vegetables and meat. That's pretty much all I eat. And
that's right. We got to get rid of all the carbs. It's the carbs that were killing us.
Refined sugars, man. Yeah.
Well, carbs and sugars, and that's the whole reason our diets are so bad here. One of the main reasons is economics. It's cheap to eat carbs.
Oh my God.
I mean,
right.
Like
so
you talk about that. Like I buy a lot of my bulk vegetables from Sam's Club, find your big box store. It's where I buy it. The price for vegetables has gone up like tenfold.
Well, how can it not? I mean, between inflation and fuel costs and everything else going, how can it not? I mean, that's the whole thing. Everything's going crazy right now, and got to expect. Again, it's back down to what's cheaper to transport: carbs, flour, wheat, and stuff, or vegetables that perish, or your fruits and all the. There's a lot more to transport.
Yeah, and not everybody has access to a farmer's market, where you can go get the local sourced, kind of stuff. I mean, if you do, great. It's actually a lot of the times more inexpensive, but you've got to have the time, and we're talking
it's
about
an effort,
a bunch of
right?
It's an effort,
and it's seasonal.
And it's seasonal.
It's seasonal. So there's a lot more to it.
So you give a single mother a choice.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be like, hey, look, I can feed my 3 kids on meal from X, fast food joint or whatever, or just this bulk sort of thing. And that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah.
I did hear about.
Can't blame them.
I did hear about something near us. It's about an hour plus or minus. That somebody at my work actually talked about. Basically, there's a farm, and you can actually go to it, and you pay by the bucket type of thing. So you can just pick as much as you want of what's ever there from the field, and it's you pay pennies on the dollar.
Aren't you an hour away from everything? I feel like you're an hour away from your mailbox.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. I'm in the process of trying to sell my house, which, by the way, selling a house in California is a giant pain in the fucking ass.
Well, in this market now, I mean, it's back to timing again, and all of a sudden, inflation and interest rates are going crazy, and the fire went out of it.
Yeah,
it's a buyer's market now instead of a seller's market.
And then also the worst time to buy a car you can possibly imagine.
Holy shit. If you talk about that, if you want to see amazing inflation, go to the Facebook marketplace and look up used vehicles. I'm always looking for some sort of project vehicle. And I've seen the prices skyrockets. I saw a high-end top-of-the-line Ford selling for $159,000.
Good grief.
And I don't know if this was I don't know if they put any extras in it, but I'm thinking for $159,000, it better do more than what it's doing.
Yeah.
I don't know why you buy a used vehicle for that kind of money when you can just go order yourself a new one for that kind of money.
You could buy a high-end top-of-the-line, every gizmo gadget plus aftermarket parts for a top-of-the-line Corvette for that amount of money.
And I swear, I mean, from my point of view, and a lot of people I know, I just want something that's going to work forever, man.
Yes.
Just that car that you bought in the 80s that worked through high school. And I mean, I don't know if those exist anymore. And if they do, that's the one I want to buy. Stuff that's relatively easy to fix, but nothing seems to be that anymore.
No, it can't be.
So,
it's just between governmental regulations and everything else that's out there, you just can't. It just doesn't happen.
I have a $1 million idea, and it's free to anybody who can do this. I came up with an idea for a modular car. And this sounds ridiculous, but you buy the body, and the engine is a module. The stereo, everything. Basically, you're putting the car together, and if you need to replace the engine, it's X amount of money, and it's something that you could just pop in and pop out like a battery pack.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Unfortunately,
good
there's
luck with
too
that.
many things that get connected to too many different things, and
If
the amount of wiring that's got to go through the body just to get your headlights or your tail lights to work,
Well, there's some pre-wiring done, but you know what's amazing is how much of that wire is existing in your car currently. Like, I had a car that I wanted to buy the fog lights. The fog lights were already there, the wiring. All I had to do was pop off the cover and plug everything. And there's a good amount of stuff that's already there. And talk about what's already there that you guys really need to pay attention to is our sponsor, Audacity.
Today's show is brought to you by Audacity.
Audacity.
The gamer dignity is overrated. Go to ODDASSITY.com. That's ODDASSITY.com. Pick up a card game from this website or selected stores. That's Audacity, the unforgettable party game for mischievous people.
I tried to get...
haven't re-recorded that one yet, huh?
No.
Yeah,
I tried to get Melanie on again, but she heard the drop and was just so embarrassed. And can't blame the poor...
A new mom, it's hard to get her to... She can't keep her eyes open past 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, she's right now coming up with the baby version.
That's right.
Just taking notes all day.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like the you might be a redneck jokes, but in game form.
Yeah.
I gotta say, for buying a car, the cheapest car I probably purchased, there's two, but actually buying a fleet car is probably one of the best ideas I've ever had.
Buying a fleet car?
Yeah, like Hertz, one of those Asus.
Oh yeah,
Texas.
my boss does that. He goes enterprise.
Yeah.
For like our work vans.
Because that's perfect.
My work
that's what
truck that we picked up for around here was a Hertz.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they generally go like low blue book. They put enough miles on them and.
Yeah, well, they're starting to open up again because, we had a shortage. I guess we still kind of have a shortage on vehicles because of chips and other problems going on. COVID hurt that as well. And so I was reading an article recently that Hertz and Enterprise both were not selling their vehicles off as quickly as they had been because of that.
Right. He used to get them for like around like 40,000 miles and they would just sell them. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 65,000 miles.
Yeah.
So they're not selling them as quick. They're keeping them with longer miles on them.
Yeah, because
they obviously
can't replace them and they cost more.
When I bought my car, it had like 49,888 type of thing on it. It's like I drove it off the parking lot and it was like
50,000 miles.
But funny is Ford only has a 30,000 mile warranty, so I'm thinking it was probably because the extra wear and tear that you need to replace that they're just like fuck it. When it gets close to 49, 50,000, just sell the thing.
Yeah,
I mean, probably some algorithm back in the day decided like that's when we can no longer really truly guarantee this thing works. Something might go wrong, and we don't want to strand our customer base and stuff.
And I bought,
the older cars, the 50s and 60 era cars. I mean, if you had a car that was 50,000 miles, it was ready to junk. Everything was falling apart. Engines were blowing up. I mean, so we've come a long way. I mean, things last much longer than they used to in reality. And, yes, I still love my older cars, but at the same time, I understand the fact that technology wasn't what it is now and things wore out and you had to work on them more often. And this was the way it was.
Yeah. I had an Acura. I had an 03 TL that I actually bought in 05 and would still have it if it wasn't the fact the transmission blew up every 50,000 miles.
I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Expensive problem.
Yeah, very expensive. It's like $5,000 easy.
Yeah, about
probably for a 6,800.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Well.
Yeah.
And so I actually bought a middle of the road hybrid, which is still stupid expensive. But if you get one from one of these Hertz rental car places, if you can get really good deals. And the best thing about it is there's no haggling. It is what it is.
Right.
A little thing that I did, though, that the old guy mentioned is get pre-approved from whatever loan place you want to go through. It's especially when the rates are going up, it'll save you time.
Yeah, it gives you options too. So that kind of stuff. Speaking of stuff like that, did you know that the FBI came out and found out that there's possibly Chinese technology in interspersed in Midwest areas on cell towers and other things that could disrupt our ability to launch our nuclear missiles.
Why am I not surprised?
Everything, most of our military stuff, the chips are made in Taiwan. Like, I think 90% of it, so I'm not surprised.
Oh,
wait, is that, Chinese... I don't even think that's legal, is it? It doesn't have to be U.S. manufactured?
I don't know about the chips.
Depends on what the definition of is.
Yeah, it's back to that area depending, because but Taiwan would be considered a ally, so I don't think that's a problem. But Chinese, that's a problem. And I guess it's that Hawa equipment, and it's been found in a lot of cell towers and areas, and apparently it has
Huawei.
That's it.
Yeah.
I guess it has a they found some of this equipment. It has the ability to block signals and disrupt our cell towers, as well as send out things that could literally block our ability to launch missiles.
I mean, something tells me our ability to launch missiles is better than their ability to stop it. I mean, the types of places that we have missile silos are not places where you're going to get near with a chip to put in a cell tower.
Well, but you got to remember how far the cell towers and things go. I mean, this is literally, let me look at it. It's an FBI report that came out. And it goes all the way back to the Obama administration trying to stop this equipment from being installed.
Oh, yeah. No, a lot of people have been really wary of the Huawei stuff for a long time now.
Yeah. So it goes back, but apparently it's still, as of 6 months ago, according to this headline I'm reading here, still in a lot of equipment out there.
Yeah, I've got nothing against the people and citizens of China, but their government is fucking batshit. Like, scary kind of batshit.
Well, I mean, I'd be honest, if we found a way of doing the same thing in China, we would probably be doing it, right? Don't forget what we did to the Iranians with their
turnabout is fair play.
That's right. So
it's so weird.
It's so weird. We just have to be on the ball to make sure we catch this stuff.
If you look at their society is very odd. If you take a look, like their social credit score. By the way, I don't know if 100% what I'm talking about is true. I've read sources, but mileage may vary. It's like the social credit score, the internet censoring, all of it is turning into some 1980s, 1970s dystopian future. I'm waiting for like the last forest to be launched in outer space. It's so fucking weird. Like how odd it is. Like the social credit score, I've read that if you don't meet whatever criteria is, you can't buy certain tickets, you can't get out of the city, you can't buy certain foods. I heard stories of COVID, mileage might vary, that they were welding people's doors shut and not giving them food,
big
like
fences around stuff, and
it's fucking crazy and
dystopian like crazy,
And you hear people saying, "Oh, the U.S. is doing this, U.S. is doing that." It's like, bitch, nobody's welding my door shut.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I heard another one just recently about women who were getting up in age and they wanted to freeze their eggs. So that maybe later on somebody could have a child from this. And this is in China. And the Chinese say, no, you can't do that unless you're married.
Whoa.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, so there are a lot of things that they do that we would kind of go, huh?
And
I'm going, huh?
And a lot of that's just hidden agenda stuff, like they've got some generational sorts of plans going on. You know who's really loving all of this, though? Any spy over the age of like 50. They're like, hell yeah, I miss the Cold War so much. Let's get back into some good old-fashioned espionage.
There was a TikToker. If you guys are on TikTok, which by the hello Chinese.
Right.
There was a TikToker, and it was a lady. Her dad or grandfather was a spy, and people would like message him and ask questions, and I wish I remember the name of it because it was super interesting, the shit he would say. Like, what would you do if blank happened? And he would, bend over and kiss your ass goodbye. And this guy was a legit spy. I don't know why you would be comfortable saying that you were a spy, but it's super fascinating because now some of these spies are actually starting to tell their stories of some of the shit they did that they can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys that have kind of gone public with some of that. I mean, they're pretty cagey about a lot of things, but like, they get into a lot of interesting hypotheticals and stuff like that.
Like my favorite one is the Xerox. I think it was the Russian embassy where they figured out that how you can actually take 2 copies of stuff. Like they would like get a digital copy of like whatever this Russian guy was doing, and the maintenance guy would come in every once in a while and take out whatever.
Oh yeah. We've been very clever with a lot of this stuff. The problem is these other countries are just starting to catch up. And that's the problem.
It's always been that cat and mouse, kind of thing. I mean, this is where we got this is where James Bond was created. How many amazing spy movies loved the Cold War kind of era, because it was just everything was kind of lo-fi. It was all about boots on the ground. Nowadays a spy movie is a guy literally sitting in front of his computer just
exactly.
But still, my favorite comment about James Bond was by a guy who worked for the CIA. Said if James Bond was real, he'd be the worst spy ever.
Worst spy ever.
That's right.
A drunk, womanizing piece of shit. Really, how many times has that guy's life been saved by pure dumb luck?
Exactly. That's what made the movies entertaining.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Radiation shower will pour throughout your town.
Here we go again.
Hands over your head, deep low to the ground. Time to duck and cover. The bombs are coming down.
You got to get more material, John.
I've often said if there was the nuclear war, going to happen, I hope the bomb hits me in the forehead.
Yeah, we've said that multiple times in the show. We keep bringing this stuff up. You're absolutely right.
Or just like so far away from me that the fallout will never happen. But I live in California, so that there's a chance that some particular countries that don't like super liberal areas are gonna nuke my state.
The only thing that like something like Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles have is the terror war, the demoralization tactics of we're going to demoralize everybody by bombing big cities, take the fight right out of people. That's the only tactical advantage.
They can't
hit their major infrastructure where it's being like Sacramento would be, it's the head of the state. So you're going to take out capitals and you're going to do that.
But, depending on how many nukes you got, you're going to go after NORAD, SAC, and, those kinds of military stuff.
I'm a taxpayer in California. I'm already demoralized. You guys just skip knocking California out. Plus, I'm a homeowner in the middle of one of the worst fire seasons. So you can,
But the problem is we're disgruntled with guns. I've just fuck around and find out. Come on in, Russia. Let's go. And, everyone just loading up magazines like, you know what, man? I had a shitty day at work today. It's going down.
That was one of my favorite things during the Cold Wars was just like, there's nothing more angry than a hick, than a disgruntled redneck. It's like, you could hit California with nothing happen, but once you cross the Mason-Dixon line, you're going to have some fucking issues.
No kidding. So dude, I think that people would have issues coming into California, and then they're like, wow, man, I can't believe those Americans are pretty tough. Then they get to Texas and they're like, oh no, this is tough. This is they're playing a different game.
We got to wind it up because we're over time. But my question is, if whoever decides to invade Los Angeles County, where do you think they're going to have the most issue?
South Central.
Okay. So that's what I was thinking.
Montebello.
Montebello. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you guys...
at least one apartment will give them some shit.
Yeah.
So, do you have any stories or any comments to round out this week's Mad Trio podcast?
Nothing I'm going to do in 30 seconds.
So, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor.
I've got something that's really chapping my hide about California today, but that's going to
Ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Make sure you check out our sponsor, Audacity. That's ODDASSITY.com. Hopefully I said that correctly. Use MadTrio, all caps.
Audacity.
For 10% off your final order. Make sure you also go to themadtrio.com to check out the feed. You check out Facebook. We are all over all social media. And as always, thank you for listening.
Goodbye.